Well, hello, and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 152. I'm Tristan Jutra,
I'm Will Silver.
and 152, you add them up, you get 8. What a great number.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, the lovely and talented Tasia Custodi could not be here once again. As we mentioned last week, she's off on holiday somewhere after months and months of really hard work. So, as mentioned, go rob her house, steal her butt rub off her porch, see a very early episode for what that's all about. And Gray Williams is hopefully he'll be back next week. He's encountered some little mini health emergency. Hopefully he should be okay. Keep him in your thoughts, but hopefully he'll be joining us back next week. It's just having a little challenge at the moment, but
just thoughts, not thoughts and prayers.
Well, I'll think you.
It's not
no,
that serious.
You think I'll pray.
Yes. Okay. There you go.
Thoughts and prayers. We save those for mass shootings.
Yes, that's what I was sort of implying.
Exactly. Everything sincere has been made terrible. Cool.
Yeah.
So if you want to find out about more terrible things, come and join us at our website, www.momentous.tv, where you can learn about all the things that we talk about every week. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But first, these stupid controls making me all big, and they should be little. Here we go. Let's get on with just a little bit of follow-up. You may recall last week, Will, we talked about Princess Catherine and the amateur Photoshop job that set the internet ablaze with just fueled various conspiracy theories that already existing regarding her absence from the public eye post surgical procedure in January. And, she's trying to share a photo of her and the kids, but bad Photoshop. And then it got pulled off of the news wires, and all the internet sleuths jumped on it. Well, the internet sleuths aren't happy with just that, even though Princess Kate went onto Instagram and posted a little mea culpa about her amateur Photoshop job. Now people have been going back into the past photos where they didn't notice before. And example, there was a photo from a couple years ago with Queen Elizabeth II and her grandchildren. And they found all sorts of irregularities, instances of, editing. What it looks like to me, Will, is that it's like, there's features in a lot of cameras and phones now where you hold the shutter button down and it takes a bunch of images, and then you can automatically stitch them together where everyone's smiling. But in the process, you get some other weird little artifacts. I think that's what's going on here. But people need a hobby, I guess. Any thoughts? We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but
I mean, a couple things. First of all, do the royals not pay someone to do like Photoshop work for them? Second of all, I think it's much ado about nothing. It's someone just playing around on their own, and we shouldn't be so vicious about it. These are, like you say, it could be an automatic camera feature or an app or something that does this. People say Photoshop, but I don't know if it's actually Photoshop. Is she seriously busting open Adobe and like importing her photos and editing them in Photoshop, or is she just doing some light editing on her phone, like you say, stitching things together or using some sort of app to, clear up trouble spots and stuff like that? And the thing is, for most people, that stuff is fine, but yeah, it's not professional quality. And I guess they're holding her to professional quality when it might have just been something that she took on her phone. Even those things like, was it like the Pixel where you can cut people out and stuff? Like most people are happy with that. But if you take that to like a digital artist or like a professional, photo photographer or photo touch-up person, they're going to think that stuff is a joke. So, let's just relax a little bit, I think.
You think?
Yeah.
That should be the our motto just for the show and for the entire internet. Everyone just relax.
I know.
So regarding Kate's photo, Princess Catherine's photo, that was all set the world ablaze last week. That was taken with a was it a Sony or was it a Canon? It was a DSLR camera, and it was edited in Photoshop.
Oh,
This
was
one,
it? Okay.
yeah. And then that's why Kate came out and said, I was, an amateur,
playing around with Photoshop,
yeah, blah blah blah, just trying to fix it up a bit. Now this one of the late Queen Elizabeth II and her grandchildren and great grandchildren, its provenance is a little unclear. It's from. It's from just over almost a year ago, and it was at Getty Images. But people have identified 19 possible alterations, and some of them are pretty obvious. But again, it looks like people taking shortcuts with the compositing the image together. Because has anyone here ever tried to take a photo with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids and an elderly woman, like trying to get everyone looking at the camera at the same time, smiling at the same time? It's,
especially a baby.
Yeah, right. And even as it is, like the toddler in this one isn't really looking at the camera. I mean, they're doing what they can. They're just people, folks. They're not gods.
Yeah.
So anyway, everyone simmer down. Yeah. Royals are people too, and their staff are non-professional Photoshop people apparently.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move. Again, we're taking advantage of Tasia's extended absence to cover as much gaming stuff as we can. I looked
at the show notes. I'm like, holy moly, this would not be a Tasia show.
Let's enjoy it while it lasts. So, Will, this one's just for you. Latest Starfield patch brings more enhancements and improvements. You want to refresh us as to what Starfield is and what this latest patch actually does?
Yeah, sure. This is Starfield is the latest game from Bethesda, which is basically the makers of games like Fallout and what's the other one? It's on the tip of my tongue. The one that's medieval and fantasy based. I'll think about the name in a second. Skyrim, yeah, Skyrim. There we go.
The non-gamer gets it. Whoa!
I'm not a big Skyrim guy, you can tell. But I was a huge Fallout person.
Yeah.
I'm more sci-fi. I think the show kind of shows I'm more of a sci-fi person from my interest. But anyways, Starfield was right in my wheelhouse. I've played, I think, 200 hours of Starfield.
And that's just last week.
Yeah, that's just last week. I'm a big fan. I like the game a lot. They have continued to update and add things. So before this patch, there was things like you could sit at a table and actually eat your food instead of just walking around and eating it. Before, you couldn't sit at the table. They've done some updates.
Take a load off.
Yeah, take a load off. They've done some updates to textures and graphics and things like that. There were some blog articles about that showed side-by-side comparisons. And I recently got that patch, or I should say a couple weeks ago I got that patch, and that was really amazing. It's a great free patch. So these things are mostly minor updates, but it's nice to see. I think part of this is them showing that they're still doing updates. People kind of again rushed to judgment and said, this is garbage, there's a bunch of stuff doesn't work, this is stupid. The problem is that just about every game has things like this, where there's things that need to be changed or updated, or people request certain features. Most notably Cyberpunk 2077, which came out during the pandemic. One of the things they blamed for the poor response to the game was that they couldn't really test it properly during the pandemic. And it had a lot of bugs and problems and loading issues and all sorts of other things. And, are
they familiar with remote work?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the story to this is that Cyberpunk 2077 is now considered a lot better because they spent a lot of time fixing it, and they went through and did more testing, and they did a bunch of updates, and now people generally think it's a good game. But, it was considered a pile of garbage for a long period of time because, you know, people were like, I turned it on day one and there was bugs. So,
and
you
that's
know,
how they sound. Do you
that's
remember
how
the
they
good old
sound.
days, Will, where people had to just ship things on a cartridge and there were no
Yeah, exactly,
updates? You
Be
couldn't.
fortunate.
Yeah, you couldn't log on and fix any bugs. Like the bugs were the bugs, and that's
Yeah.
how it was. I mean, games were a lot simpler, obviously, but you go and play Smurfs on the ColecoVision, and you get to the very last screen, and you go back to the left hand edge, and you tap to go to the previous screen, and poof, Smurfette's dress disappears.
Oh
Still
no.
happens. They couldn't update that one.
My light went out.
Yeah, you're in the dark now. What's going
Yeah, I
on?
mean, for those listening at home, I'm all black. Or in
That coincided with the ColecoVision Smurfette bug. All right.
exactly. Yeah. So I will plug in my light in a sec, but I did want to just say a few things. I'm so dedicated and focused on this that a couple of the big features is photo mode, which is interesting, where you can basically pose players and take photos. Now, this is the next item is something that bugs me, but is going to seem so minor. And this is not a major thing. This is how minor these updates are. You can actually use your scanner, which you use in the environment, to tell where middles are and different things are and where enemies are and things like that. And before, you couldn't open doors or open boxes or things with loot in them, things with items in them. You couldn't open them while in scanner mode. You had to turn off scanner mode, open the box, and then turn back off scanner mode. Oh man, you're killing me. I had to turn off scanner mode for 3 seconds and then turn it back on. So now you can open things in scanner mode. Oh, thank God, Bethesda.
So,
Game's fixed now.
well, I mean, you
This
have to
is
do
the
something.
second tier item in the list. And it's
Well,
a good fix, but
yeah.
it's like, is that ever minor? Holy cow.
Well, I mean, how much friction does that represent? Like, if it's something you end up doing dozens, if not 100 times in a
Yeah,
game, like,
it's true. It's true. And
and is it that the scanner, like, would the scanner normally occupy one of the hands of your character, and that's why
no, well,
there's
the thing
no?
is, you turn it on, right? It's
Okay.
almost, think of it sort of like a HUD that goes over the
Oh, I
screen.
see. So this
And
isn't a
you can
handheld
you
thing to
can
play your
see
character.
everywhere, and it says like, oh, that rock over there is iron. That guy is an enemy. There's an animal down there, and it says things like
Mm-hmm.
on the screen. But to open, you go up to an item, and it would identify an item that you could take, and that would be fine. But if it was like a box, you would have to turn off the scanner, then
I
take
get
the
it.
stuff
Yeah.
out of the box, then turn the scanner back on. So that's where that is a nice thing, but you can see how like they're just doing minor fixes,
Yeah.
right?
Quality of life
So
improvement, etc.
yeah,
Or you could
and
just go outside
yeah,
if
yeah,
you want to
exactly.
if you want to improve your quality of
Yeah,
life.
and I'm also going to say, as someone who works at a video game company, there's big fixes and minor fixes, right? So sometimes these are just the ongoing ones that they get to and fix, and then sometimes there'll be some big one like changing a skill tree, or I don't know, one of their last updates, it was a huge overhaul to the graphics system, and like there was more like shadows and all this kind of ray tracing and all this fun stuff. So I mean, there's small edits and big edits. This is just, again, I think the story here more than anything is they are still dedicated to fixing the game, so that's a good sign. And for people who like to propagate the story that Starfield is a failure or not a good game, shows that people are still working on it. So they haven't abandoned it, and they think they can improve it. And I think it's a good game. It's a very divisive game. I had a colleague say to me, it's the worst game that I can't stop playing. That was their somewhat snobby response, but I thought it was good too. It's like, it's a horrible game, but I can't stop playing it for some reason. So, well, then it's not horrible, is it? So, anyways, yeah, I've always said I I don't have quite highfalutin views of games. If it's sort of like a blockbuster. If I enjoy it, then I enjoy it, and when I stop enjoying it, then I stop playing it. It doesn't have to be, you know, Citizen Kane or
Can't wait for the video game adaptation of that one.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, or Skyrim or whatever. But yeah, I think that was also a lot of things. People thought this was going to be Skyrim in space or Fallout in space, and it sort of is. But they have complaints about, again, things that I didn't notice, but things like, oh, one of the main sort of hub world planet city isn't big enough, and there's not enough people around, and I don't know. It's just like, I didn't even notice that, but okay. I kind of feel like it's, again, suspension of disbelief. It's like a movie, right? Can you suspend your disbelief and enjoy it? Or, are things going to bother you? I think I told you the story. A friend of mine, we were talking about Tron. This is with Tron Legacy. It came out like a decade or more ago. And I said, oh, I thought it was pretty good. Like, Tron, just as a backstory to people, if you haven't seen Tron, it's people go into a computer. Just remember that when I tell you the story.
It's a documentary.
So, yeah, it's a documentary. So people going inside of a computer. Remember that point. Just keep that right here. So I'm talking to my friend, George, and I said, hi, George. I'm a friend of the show, I'm sure. And I said, what do you think of it? And he said, I hated it. I couldn't get into it. He's like, oh, really? What? He's like, yeah, it lost me. When did it lose you? Oh, at the beginning where the main character goes up on a crane and like the fat security guard follows him? That's unrealistic. The security guard would never followed him up on the crane. So it's not the going into a computer that lost you. It was a fat security guard going on a crane that lost you.
Dude was out of shape.
That's I'm out. 5 minutes in, no. Fat guy goes on a crane. No way.
Yeah. Do you even lift?
No way. I mean, that's 5 minutes into a 2.5-hour movie.
All right. Well, we're 17 minutes into a 2.5-hour podcast, and we're still on follow-up. So let's move on to our next gaming-related thing while Tasia's not here, and that is people could maybe redirect some of their energy, toward scanners on and off and whatnot, to helping to defeat the final outstanding Super Mario Maker level. Mm-hmm. So, Will, are you familiar with this whole phenomenon? I didn't realize that as of April 8th, Nintendo is going to be shutting down the servers that host all the I guess, the community-created levels for Super Mario Maker. So that's happening April 8th. And then, so as of 2017, so late 2017, so about 6.5 years ago, there were almost 85,000 uncleared levels. So levels that people had designed but had not been conquered yet. So this is Super Mario Maker for the Wii U, which is a console from, well, like, what year is it? Early, was it 2011? The Wii, 2012, the Wii U came out. So it's been supported for quite a while by Nintendo with online, and people get upset whenever these things get shut down. But apparently, this Team 0%, the people who signed up, have done what they can to clear all these levels. But there is still one level that is flummoxing everyone, and it is called trimming the herbs. And apparently there have been 43,000 attempts to beat this level, which if you could nail it, it should only take 17 seconds or so. But apparently it is impossibly hard. Will, what can you tell us about? We know you're a big time Mario fan, and I love the idea of level creators. I remember creating levels for, I think it was it Load Runner for the Commodore 64. Back in the day. So it was always fun when there were games that let you design your own levels. And of course, with the online component, you could share them with others. So 85,000 levels have been cleared. There's this one left, over 43,000 attempts so far. Are you going to contribute to the effort, Will, and help defeat this final boss for Super Mario Maker for the Wii U?
I hadn't heard about this until recently, but I am familiar with the game. also like Super Mario Maker, I guess this is specifically the Wii U version. I think there's other versions. Um, like we often share videos of stupid levels. There's a guy I follow on Instagram that is constantly doing stupid levels on Mario Maker that are impossible and must take 1,000 attempts to get right. So I love this idea. I think it's actually, you know, really fun thing that's sprung out of this kind of level maker. I think a lot of people just made random levels and put them up, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a super fun story.
It's an interesting example of like an online community with a pretty,
Yeah.
pretty niche interest, like getting together to, to conquer the seemingly unconquerable. So they've got a couple, 2.5, 3 weeks to go here, and grind it out. But that, I mean, how frustrating is that, right? Like just. Now, I think what's going to happen is that once they shut this down, I think there's Super Mario Maker 2 is coming out some point, maybe later this year for
Yeah,
the
I
the
thought this
Nintendo
was in
Switch.
other platforms, but it seems to be only on the Wii U for
Mhm,
some reason, or
mhm,
at least that I'm seeing here in the
mhm.
3DS. But I guess, yeah, the second one's coming out soon, so
All
that's why
right.
they're doing it.
So go online, folks. If you got to dust off your old Wii U and try and find the community, the Team 0%, and do your part to help solve the final level in Super Mario Maker for the Wii U.
Oh, sorry, there is a Mario Maker 2. Sorry, live report coming in from the front.
Mm-hmm. When's it come out?
No, there is one already.
Is it out already? All right.
Yeah, it's like it's on the Switch,
Right.
2019. That's why I
What?
thought there were other ones. Yeah, so they must be just shutting down this first
Well,
version.
how old's this other video where they're talking about this before Mario Maker 2 comes out? Let's see. Our cutting edge. Oh yeah, well that video is from 4 years ago. There you go. They couldn't do it in the 2 years. They're still,
They're
but
still doing it?
well, they're still trying to clear the levels.
Interesting.
That last one.
But they're
Anyhow,
finally shutting it down.
yes, April
Yeah.
8th.
Okay.
So moving on to some AI related gaming news.
Mhm.
I can't remember how many months ago it was. I think Gray was with us and we were talking about NPCs, non-playable characters,
Mhm.
potentially being powered by AI for some video games now. So NPCs are like can be notoriously dumb in video games. They have a number of lines in their scripts to choose from, and the whole idea of like using generative AI is that you could have extended conversations with these NPCs, and they could help you in a useful way through the game because they're trained on a certain portion of the game's lore, as it were. So Ubisoft has been putting this to work with some AI powered video game NPCs, and you encounter them in the gameplay, and then you can type in questions to ask them or use voice recognition to ask them yourself using your voice, and then it'll understand what you're saying and give you an answer. And then, of course, with the more and more realistic animation as time goes on, we're getting into uncanny valley territory. But just as we're getting used to chatting with large language model chatbots like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and others, now we are having more and more realistic conversations with chatbots inside video games themselves. So, in this article from The Verge, they have a partial transcript from the conversation, and it goes. The video I believe is like goes on for like 17 minutes or something. It's quite involved. Now, Will, of the games that you've mentioned or have played previously, how like what has been your experience with NPCs, and what do you think of the development of having AI powered NPCs and what they might add to gameplay?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting idea. I mean, it's kind of a natural extension. I guess, you know, my worry is you really do have to keep them on script. Often NPCs have vital roles in telling
Yeah,
you certain things.
yeah.
You know, part of this video that we were watching, you know, the person's almost playing with testing it. Part of what NPCs often have a script that they tell you because you need to know certain things. This is part of the storytelling element. So I think it's actually a little harder than maybe people think it is. I think it's interesting. There's definitely something there, but it'll definitely change the way we look and use NPCs in the future. So I don't know. I think people are going to go there because it's a natural spot to go, but I'm not sure it's an improvement, to be quite honest with you. Having said that, I think that there are plenty of examples of people just recycling lines and just reusing lines. Mentioning Starfield is pretty good at having fairly unique lines. There are some that come up over and over again. You know, there's often one that security guards will say when you go by them. It's like, I studied to be an actuary and somehow I ended up here. Another one is like, I went to chef school and look at me now, or something. There's two lines like that I've heard a number of times. So yeah, there are lines that you hear over and over again, but I am surprised often by when I hear new lines. It's like, holy cow, they recorded that for this instance. That's pretty amazing. So, I mean, if you think about it, it's difficult to find every situation to find a piece of dialogue. So I guess that's where NPCs could help, but I think there's still a place for scripted dialogue. And yeah.
Well, I mean, with the high quality synthesized voice acting now, where you don't even need real people, it kind of these two things go hand in hand. So you could have some novel dialogue being generated, and then you don't have to have it recorded because the system itself can just the generative AI system can actually create the voice for you in character. So just to clarify, Ubisoft is stating that these NPCs are a prototype, a creative experiment, R&D project in collaboration with Nvidia and InWorld.ai. So not committing to shipping them in a full game yet, but I can imagine within the next year or two, we're going to start to see this, if not from Ubisoft, from others. And then, of course, soon thereafter, we're going to have people who will make it their personal mission to try to break these NPCs and get them to say highly inappropriate things.
Yeah. That's sort of where I'm afraid it's going to go, and it probably will go. And
just wait till the next Grand Theft Auto. What are the NPCs they're going to be saying?
God, yeah. I mean, people already break them in interesting ways. We don't need to challenge people here.
But that's not it for AI in gaming. Google's new AI will play video games with you. So Google DeepMind has trained its video game playing AI agent on games like Valheim, No Man's Sky, and wait for it, even Goat Simulator. So this is all part of a project called SIMA, SIMA, and I'm not exactly sure what the whole point of this is, but basically, it seems like they're trying to make additional players. Like, so we've referred to other players in games, like computer controlled players, as AIs sometime, but because they're bequeathed with certain algorithms that do what they do, control their actions. So you can think back to the original Pac-Man game, for example. The ghosts had certain patterns that they followed, and they were very simplistic. Ms. Pac-Man, the ghosts were a bit more sophisticated, and as time has gone on, that's what can make video games more challenging, is having smarter colleagues, co-players controlled by computers, or opponents in there as well. So it seems like that's what Google's trying to get at here with training this model, is to create additional characters in games that can actually act. So let's apply it to, say, this NPC. Maybe you've got an NPC you're having a conversation with, but maybe he's also fighting alongside you and doing it in a way where he's not just getting blown to smithereens right away. Right?
Yeah.
And you have more and more autonomous agents within a game, which is kind of cool. What is? Do you recall any past experience, Will, when playing games where the other characters controlled by the computers, referred to colloquially as AIs, but not necessarily AI driven, just driven by simple algorithms, where they have done that they have acted hilariously stupidly or surprisingly smartly? Anything come to mind from your years of gaming experience with computer controlled characters?
I'm just thinking of Starfield right now. So in Starfield and Fallout, you often have what they call a companion, almost like from Doctor Who, and it's someone who tags along with you in. In Fallout, it can be a couple of people. There's famously a dog named Dog Meat who follows you around, who's quite popular. There's also a detective, I forget his name, who's actually a robot in Fallout 4. In this game, Starfield, there's a number of different people that can be your companion. My current companion tends to like to walk in front of my gun when I'm trying to fire sometimes, particularly when I'm like aiming down the scope of a sniper rifle and she just walks in front. Yeah, it's like poof. And she's like, oh no, I got hit or something. I'm like, yeah, you did, dummy.
So it's one of those games where you can actually hurt your fellow.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. I mean, sometimes you have to revive them, but not in the same way that you get injured. But yeah, if they take a lot of fire, you have to revive them. But yeah, but yeah. So, anyways, that's probably the most notable example. Often, like on my ship in Starfield, like someone's blocking a door, like one of my crew, because I have a whole crew of people. And I'm just like, get out of the way. Get out of the way. I'm trying to get to the other room. Go. I'll just be pushing them like, come on, let's go. So, yeah.
So maybe with some help from Google's DeepMind SEMA project, future AI companions in video games get a little smarter and not get in the way of your gun or your travel path there.
Yeah.
But Google DeepMind's not done. Well, they're applying their smarts from not in just from your love of gaming but your love of soccer. So Google DeepMind has made an AI tool for analyzing soccer tactics. They released a research paper just today, as we record, March 19th. It's teamed up with Liverpool FC, also football club, to develop TacticAI, an AI system that soccer coaches can use to get insights on corner kicks and player setups. So basically, this tool, TacticAI, is using generative and predictive AI to help coaches figure out which player is most likely to receive the ball during corner kicks, whether a shot will be taken, and how to adjust player setup. The player says human experts found that the tool's suggestions are indistinguishable from real corner kicks and were picked 90% of the time over tactical setups even seen in practice. So are we going to see AI assisted coaching in football now with real-time access to we see so much stuff in broadcasts now on different kinds of sports with overlays of different graphics and whatnot. And, you can see things like, the time on rink, for example, in hockey, and, the speed of shots and whatnot. And I imagine more and more data is coming to soccer, or as they say overseas, football as well. What are your thoughts on the the increased amount of data being applied to your favorite sport, Will, and the potential of AI tools, helping with soccer coaches, figure out, how to call upcoming plays?
Well, this has been going on for a while. I mean, famously, this is what the movie and the book Moneyball was all about. Was the GM of the Oakland A's using statistics to help pick players and form strategies, and it's one of my sort of favorite books and movies. It's a very interesting idea where baseball was a lot about the passion, about the sort of the experience. Scouts would talk about the crack of the bat, or about well, he just looks like he has a good hop from the plate, things like that, where it's like, nah, stats say he's not that good, or like stats say that's not that important. He somehow tends to get on base a lot, and so we're going to pick him instead of the guy who's got a good crack of the bat. So it's these little things that end up mattering. And it's a little bit that way with football or soccer, is that up until maybe 15-20 years ago, they didn't even really track things like assists. even now assists aren't that important. It was a lot about, was that a good tackle? Was that a good goal?
A good dive.
Good time. Hey, that's spoken to someone who doesn't appreciate soccer. That's not the only thing here, my friend. So yeah, it was a lot about, and again, a lot like if you go to a soccer game, you will see people applaud like a good tackle or applaud, kicking the ball out. It's like, it's the little things, and applying data can definitely help that, and applying things like AI and actually looking at things. You actually see players now, I jokingly call it the bra, or other people call it the bra. They have a sort of a thing that they put on, a harness that tracks their movement, so you can see where they run around the pitch. It has GPS. It says their heart rate, how much they actually travel, and that's used to judge players about how many kilometers they run a game or how fast they do it and all that kind of stuff. So stats have really come in very heavy in football in the last 15-20 years. If you play FIFA, there's a ton of stats in there to break stuff down. So sorry, it's not called FIFA anymore. It's
FC.
called EAFC. So but yeah, so I think this is just a natural extension of sports. Like you say, it's happening in hockey. Baseball's bonkers. Baseball's like I can't even understand baseball stats anymore. Like I used to understand some stats, and I still do watch baseball occasionally, and like the odd baseball game. Grew up watching, the Red Sox and the Mariners, family connections and local teams. And we went to a Canadians game last year, which we should do again, with a friend of the show, Steven, and his friends. But yeah, I mean, I think there's just so many stats out there, and it really is a tool that wasn't being used for many years. So that's what the revolution of Moneyball was, and it's only naturally coming to football as well.
Yeah, and the natural extension of that is moving from these sort of analyzing a season at a time to a game at a time to now a play at a time, and in real time.
Yeah,
being able to do this with the assistance of AI.
Well, you're now seeing people come out with tablets, like at games, and sometimes they're sometimes showing replays in real time or showing stats that are going on. So they have access to these things. They have access to tablets and other things that are adding coaching tools. And so, I mean, if they're allowed to have a tablet on the field, why can't they run an AI program to say, hey, this team does poorly against this kind of corner kick? Well, then let's do that.
So the secret sauce here, according to the paper at DeepMind.Google, is that TacticAI is described as a full AI system with combined predictive and generative models to analyze what happened in previous plays and how to make adjustments toward making a particular outcome more likely. So there's a little diagram talking about predictive models, so what will happen, and then what actually happened. So there's embeddings and retrieval of data, how to make this happen. So having guided generation, so suggesting plays in reaction to what happened previously. And then all of that is part of, what educates a TacticAI, and then how it helps assist coaches. So this is what's been happening with Liverpool FC over the last 3 years, all part of AI for sports analytics. So the three questions that they're trying to address are, for example, for a given corner kick tactical setup, what will happen? Who is likely to receive the ball, and will there be a shot attempt? 2, once a setup has been played, can we understand what happened? Have similar tactics worked well in the past? And 3, how can we adjust the tactics to make a particular outcome happen? So how should the defending players be repositioned to decrease the probability of shot attempts? So corner kicks are just like the starting point, and you can see them going more and more, eventually applying this to things like, penalty kicks and whatnot. So you start with a limited domain, and you really train these on how the game actually works, and then you move on to other types of plays over time. And it's just going to get, all this stuff's going to get more and more interesting. And you could see this too, how this could apply to American football too, especially given some people, like with any sport, when they don't understand how it works, they kind of find it boring. And I think a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say that about American football, because it's a very, different game, obviously, to soccer, and it's much, slower because it's so many stops and starts. It's more like baseball in a way, but I kind of liken it to chess. Like, I'm not a huge American football fan either. I'm more of a hockey guy, as you know, but you imagine you got that little bit of extra time between plays, and if you were able to train an AI model on that, I could see being very helpful if it was allowed by the NFL.
Yeah.
To be able to figure out plays, and you could even based on who else is on the field, your own players and the opposing players. Like these are just the kind of the AI applications that most people aren't even thinking of right now, except of course Google and Liverpool FC are. So we'll see if this continues to spread to other sports as well.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to a whole lot of AI related stuff. We're not going to get too deep into the announcements. From Nvidia has something called GTC going on this week, and of course I can't remember what that means exactly. GTC conference. Anyway, so there's so many announcements coming out of GTC. Nvidia, the chip maker, has gained prominence quite a lot over the last several years. We've talked about how their graphics chips and graphics cards have come to dominate in
Mm-hmm.
video gaming and PC gaming. There was a hot minute where they were being used for crypto mining. That kind of decreased once the Ethereum network moved from proof of work to proof of stake. So then there's a lot of miners unloading their cards, and it was frustrating for gamers for quite a while because the prices went up on a lot of these graphics cards. Now, over the last couple of years, people have realized that the types of math that graphics cards are really good at are also great for running AI algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
And but Nvidia is not stopping there. They are continuing to pour R&D into dedicated AI graphics chips and cards, and they're more like in the $10,000 up range. And these are the kinds of things, sometimes they're as high as hundreds of thousands of dollars. But these are kind of for industrial scale operations, data centers, that are hosting and running various AI models. So at Nvidia's event this week. This event's going on like all week, but the CEO Jensen Huang had a big presentation and unveiled a lot of their plans over the next little while, and including next generation processors for AI, and also revealed what they've been doing with robotics as well, and developing a whole platform and a foundational model aimed at helping the development of robots in various cases, including industrial use cases. So they've they announced the launch of something known as Project GROOT. So it's GR00TY. It stands for Generalist Robot 00 Technology. So that 00 feels a little forced there, but maybe the next one's going to be 01 and they'll call it GROIT. I don't know. I don't know how that one's going to progress logically. But the idea is that this platform will be designed to understand natural language and emulate movements by observing human actions, so that the people and companies using this model, and of course NVIDIA chipsets, will be able to help their humanoid robots learn coordination, dexterity, and other skills in order to navigate, adapt, and interact with the real world. And as part of the demos, like they showed industrial applications, but they also had a screen where they had a whole number of various sort of Android style robots up on stage. It was a projection, but that's not all. Then there was a couple of little robots that came out, and they were bipedal, but they were kind of like shorter than, say, like even R2D2, and they were
Yeah.
so cute, Will. And apparently, there's some
They're from a
collaboration with.
video game.
Yeah. Okay. What do you happen to know what game that is?
Jedi Fallen Order.
There we go. So they are actually related to the Star. They don't just look like they're from the Star Wars universe. They are actually from the Star Wars universe, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Incredible. So, well, when we were growing up, we
Yes.
were watching Star Wars, and I think we probably share in common that the droids were like the stars of the show to a large
Yeah.
extent. We
Well,
fell in
there's
love
an
with.
argument
Mhm.
that the original Star Wars trilogy is the story of R2D2 and C3PO.
Right. And they were captivating, and C3PO, being a protocol droid, he did his best. he seemed a little neurotic at times. R2D2 was a bit more chill, and except when he got really excited. But they played a pivotal role in various plot points throughout the original trilogy, and then, of course, they were kind of retconned into the prequels, and then showed up here and there in the sequels that came out later on. But people have a soft spot for the droid. It's not just R2D2 and C3PO. We also have like R5D4, who what is he? Didn't he make an appearance in? Was it it was one of the newer ones. Was it The Mandalorian or was it Andor? In Andor, we've got that other little guy who's super adorable as well. Um, I can't
Oh yeah,
remember
that
his
guy.
name. Yeah. But anyhow, so when you see real like world like incarnations of these droids, because the tech is getting there, right? Where they're not, it's not just the mechanics of it, but it's the autonomy, the smarts, the ability to navigate on its own, on their own, and interact with voice or things, or bleeps and bloops even. um, when the -1-year-old Will Silver saw the original Star Wars, did
Hey, don't dox me.
or the subsequent sequels when you were a little bit older, did you ever
Yeah.
dream that we would live in a world where the Star Wars droids would come to actual life?
First of all, I just wanted to point out I yelped, and that was because my cat, who is named Ninja,
Uh-huh.
attacked me from behind while I was, and I did not hear him coming. He snuck up on me and attacked. But yeah, no, this is awesome. I love this. This is just amazing. And this is, I'm a Star Wars nerd. I'm also a Disney nerd. Disney's been working on this. Disney's
Mm-hmm.
been working on autonomous droids. They That's kind of their dream. They have an R2D2 that rolls around, but somebody's controlling it somewhere.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of Expo Ernie back in the day.
Yeah. So there's some guy somewhere. And last time I saw R2D2 when I was in the park, I'm like, where's the guy?
Yeah,
Like
he's talking into his
can't,
sleeve somewhere.
yeah, I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's in a cat, like he's driving it like a drone, and maybe
Yeah.
he has like he's sitting in a back room somewhere or something. But there's somebody driving that thing. Whereas these things are talking about actually doing, like they would just roll around, like they would just go. Now there would be minders to make sure that people didn't like punch them or something, but
Take them home,
they're
ride them off
basically
into the
talking.
sunset.
Yeah, they're basically talking about these things being, controllable, so
Mm-hmm.
like over here, BD1 or whatever, and like,
Mm-hmm.
they would come to you and stuff like that, and they wouldn't have somebody driving them. So they rolled out one a number of years ago as well. And it wasn't a very good looking droid, but they did have it going around Tomorrowland. So they're working on this. And I think we've seen these droids do tests before in the park. There's been some leak footage of them in the park. So it's coming to a theater near you. They are working on it. So
The theater of
yeah.
life.
So what you've got up on screen is BD1, which is not exactly like the droids that we saw on stage, but they're saying those ones are basically BD1s because they had to make the torso a little bit bigger because there's a lot of parts in there. It couldn't be as small as the one in the video game, but I think the one in the video game like actually sits on your shoulder. Those ones would probably break your shoulder if they were sitting on them. But yeah, I think they're basically saying those are BD1 droids, and they're pretty close.
Yeah, I just so we got these little guys. They're going for the bipedal ones. I mean, I would imagine ones on wheels would be even a little simpler to execute on. I mean, obviously they would have more challenges with the environments. I mean, this is kind of a natural extension of what we've seen for the last 20 years with robot vacuums, right? So they're just those are autonomous to a certain extreme, but very limited task domain. But we get into these things now that these devices, these robots, which they're going to be totally out of range for consumers for a good while, anyhow. But for entertainment in amusement parks and things like that, cool. And over the course of years or decades, it's quite possible that we end up with Rosie the robot in our home. It actually, I think in the Nvidia presentation, one of the things they named it actually Jetson. So a little reference there, because in the world of the Jetsons, they had robots that did all sorts of things for us. So and what we're seeing with the humanoid, like the full-on human-sized humanoid robots and work being done by Tesla, and I think Figure just announced something last week, and others. And we're going to have our C3POs within decades too, if not sooner. So it's like, that's the cool thing about science fiction. It's like, given enough time and enough other people getting inspired by this, and enough technological and engineering advancement and miniaturization of the processors, and of course that's what Nvidia is trying to enable with their technology, building a common platform that can be used by all sorts of robotics developers. I think we're going to see an explosion of these sorts of things, not in industrial uses. You think healthcare, elder care, and like I said, entertainment and whatever you can imagine. But my question is, once they're out on their own on the streets, do they get to go in the bike lane, or are they going to be on sidewalks?
That's your concern.
Yeah.
Well, the bikes go on the sidewalk, so I don't know what these guys are going to do.
All right, so moving from real world Star Wars back to the fictional Star Wars.
Yeah.
This was something that was not on. I think maybe I'd heard about it, but it kind of caught me off guard. Trailer dropping for Star Wars: The Acolyte, which will be coming in on June 4th. Well, I know nothing about this aside from the fact that it happens before Star Wars Episode 1. Is that correct? In the final days of the High Republic era.
Yeah, so the High Republic is it's definitely a long what should I say? Long running sort of storyline. It's a bit more deep Star Wars lore. It's all the stuff at the height of the Jedi Order, the time of peace. A couple hundred years. This is set a couple hundred years, I believe, before New Hope. And it's sort of the start of the downfall, I think, is what we're going to see. So
the downfall of the Republic.
The downfall of the Republic.
The High Republic, yeah.
The High Republic. And so this is again, there's all this backstory, Knights of the Old Republic games and books, and there's really a lot of deep lore. So this is mining some of that. And we're going to see, again, the sort of change in the Sith from when they got sort of, spoiler alert, annihilated before this started by the Jedi in sort of great battles, I think like 5,000 years before.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize Star Wars lore goes back thousands and thousands of years.
So this is the beginning of the Rule of Two, which you might know from the Star Wars movies, where there's they decided after they got wiped out, because basically what happened was that the Sith fought amongst themselves. So they said there should never be more than two Siths, a master and apprentice. And so I think what we're seeing here is the beginning of the master and apprentice sort of edict. And that's why it might be called the Acolyte. I'm speculating. I don't actually know. I'm just throwing out stuff based on random pieces of information I know. But I think this is interesting. A big cameo from Trinity herself. Carrie-Anne Moss. I worry about her character. I don't know if we're going to see her too deep into the show based on the trailer. Again, speculation. I don't know anything. But yeah, no, it looks interesting. I'm there for it. My wife was a little bit more on the fence, I think, just because, we like to see Jedis do well. We're biased in this family. We like good guys. And, again, we like to see Jedis be badass, not some 20-year-old take down, 100 Jedis or whatever is going to happen. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I really have enjoyed a lot of the Star Wars Disney Plus shows. I think they've been much more solid than some of the Marvel offerings, although there have been some good Marvel offerings. But Andor is one of the best shows I've seen in forever. I'm still a fan of The Mandalorian. The first season was really good, and I still enjoyed it. Boba Fett was a bit hit and miss. It was sort of like, I enjoyed the Mandalorian parts more than I enjoyed the Boba Fett parts.
Season 1.5, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So
it was those young punks on those speeder bikes that ruined it.
Oh man, yeah, the mods. And I liked Obi-Wan. It was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I
had
thought
some
there
neat
was
elements
really
for
good
sure.
moments. Him and Anakin meeting each other, I thought was great. Was it the best show? No, but I think Andor more than made up for that. So I'm less of a fan of Ahsoka, but it was okay as well. There was definitely parts that I didn't love, but there's been some really good offerings from the Star Wars Disney Plus shows. So we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic, as I said.
Yeah, again, looking at the trailer, I have to admit, it's like, oh boy, we got a lot of youngs in here, and of course, as we age, I think we're just in general, people like to see themselves on screen to a certain extent. Whether it's the color of your skin or maybe your age, like you relate to who you see on screen more so if they're kind of like you, right? So as we age, or there are people that we kind of aspire to be, but when you get old and crotchety and you see these young punks, it's probably how like our grandparents felt if they ever saw the original story. It's like this Luke Skywalker whiny kid, what?
Oh, yeah.
And they would probably roll their eyes at it. So again, so when we watch things like this, like, oh, all these young people, is it really like, give me more Andor, he's like us, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, as someone who's a big Star Wars fan, I mean, and people will go like, oh, I just couldn't watch Rebels or something like that. I'm like, I get it. Ezra is obnoxious. Like, you have to get through that. And like, I mean, people love Ahsoka now. They're like, oh, Ahsoka's so great. Oh, she's my favorite character. Ahsoka's so great. She was obnoxious in the Clone Wars show. In the early seasons of Clone Wars, she was obnoxious because those are cartoon shows that are partly aimed at kids. And they have to have a kid character that kids can identify with. And they tend to be obnoxious. Luke was
Scrappy Doo syndrome.
Yeah, Scrappy Doo. Like, Luke was obnoxious. We tend to forget that because we grew up with him and we're okay with him. But he's like, Uncle Owen, I want to smack. You go out in the field and you farm moisture.
Yeah. Well, okay, then let's start the conspiracy theories about the fate of Uncle Owen then, given his treatment of Luke.
Yeah, I'm sure it didn't end well for him.
But who's responsible?
Yeah.
You're not the boss of me.
Yeah.
So yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, it's tough. And now every other Star Wars series has to live up to Andor, and I think Ahsoka suffered a little bit from that. Not sure when Andor season 2 comes out, but we'll give this one a shot. And we're completists for the most part. In other bizarre Star Wars news from a couple of weeks ago, apparently there's something with like Star Wars and Cerveza Cristal.
I saw this. Did you send it to me, or did I see it independently of this weird interjection of beer into like Star Wars movies and stuff?
Well, so this like apparently is from like over 20 years ago. And in Chile, when the original trilogy of Star Wars movies began airing on TV there, they didn't want to cut into commercials, so they would stitch commercials into the films themselves. And it's like, what is even happening? So I guess, of course, once the internet has discovered things, they've started making memes of it. And you can watch some of the clips online that people have harvested from Chilean television. So in one case, there's a scene between Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they're having their good old heart-to-heart chat. And I think so. Obi-Wan eventually gets up and he crosses the room and leans over to a bucket of ice full of crystal. Cervezas crystals. And wait a second, a little product placement right there. But then you just keep on with the narrative of the story.
Yeah.
So now, as a result, because the internet's going to internet, people are just doing all sorts of things, inserting images of Cerveza Cristal in all scenes from movies, whether it's the Star Wars animated series or David Fincher's Seven or Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was amusing and thought I would share with you,
It's
being
great. It's
Star
great.
Wars, and seeing as you're a big fan of Chilean beer too.
Yeah. Cristal.
All right, let's get to our momentous picks, and then we can wrap this thing up. What's your momentous pick this week, William?
Yeah, so my momentous pick is called Void Bastards. It's actually a game I picked up just recently. I guess it was last week. I played it a bit on the weekend, and I'll probably play some more. It's a very interesting sci-fi game, well reviewed. I hadn't heard about it until fairly recently. It's basically, you are scavenging spaceships to try to get out of this nebula. Your sort of main ship has problems, and you are going around and scavenging things. And the interesting sort of twist on this is when you die, you're just one of many prisoners that has a backpack that goes on and moves and changes and adapts to you. So you just have another character who's a completely different character, and they have some weaknesses and they have some pluses, and you just kind of go through a bunch of people as you die. So the idea is that you're expendable, and they're
you get reincarnated, so it's okay.
Yeah, so you're using these prisoners to try to get the things that the ship needs to get going again. So you are the prisoner going through and scavenging things, and you are expendable. And when you die, someone will replace you. So it's a really interesting, neat concept. It's kind of very dark. There's a lot of dark humor about how you're expendable, and someone else will take your place. They kind of make you die early on to show you this concept, which is also kind of stunning because it's like I just took out the new car and then I crashed it. It's like I just played this game and I'm going to die right away. So just to prove the concept, and the first person that I got after I died was a chain smoker. So he would cough once in a while when I was trying to sneak around. Yeah, the different characters have different sort of backstories and personalities, and it's a really neat concept. I'm enjoying it so far. Again, I'm only maybe like 3 or 4 hours into it, but I definitely want to play it some more. And I have to recommend it. It was nominated for some awards. It's got some high praise. Yeah, check it out. Void Bastards.
So that's available on the Steam store.
Yeah.
Now,
great sort of comic booky, dark comic booky style. I'm enjoying it.
What platform are you playing it on?
I'm playing it on PC at the moment. I have to be honest with you. I don't know if it's on a console, but it's one of the games I picked up on Steam.
Yeah. So my next question would be, this game's almost 5 years old. So how did it get on your radar? At this point?
Well, to be quite honest, dude, this is one of the great things. If you're on Steam, is it becomes this thing where, if you're on Steam, you're like, Steam is almost my platform. Like I already have a computer. I get games through Steam, and when Steam, they have all sorts of events that they throw every year. And this is the spring Steam sale. And this was, if you scroll down, I think it's on deep discount, 70% off. Nice. So I bought it for $10. It's regularly $33. So I was just like,
that sounds like a Will Silver kind of price.
Yeah, it's a Will Silver kind of price. $10 sounds good. So that's how it got on my radar. But again, it's not a new game. But it was well reviewed at the time. It's about 5 years old. So this one of the great things about Steam is that you can go around and check stuff out. They have all sorts of promotions. I don't work for Steam. I'm just going to say this, but I'm just a lover of the platform. And so, for example, there's various things that happen every year. So they have Next Fest that just happened a little while ago, which is games that are coming out or games that are in demo. It promos them. Coming up soon is I think like an unHalloween event You know, they have a Halloween event, they have a Christmas event, they have all sorts of different things, and they promote different games that, you know, make sense to be promoted around that time. So Steam is great that way. And you know, if you're on it, and you can put stuff on your wish list and wait for it to go on sale, which is what this guy does. Yeah, so it's great. I really recommend Steam. It recommends other games. If you like one game, it recommends other games. As you can see there, it's got all sorts of FPS, action, roguelike, single player. Like, it has all these data associated with the game. So if it sees that you like games with certain tags, it'll start suggesting other games that, you know, are comic book first-person strategy space games. Yeah, so Steam is great that way. It feels like I'm promoting Steam more than I'm talking about Void Bastards, but that's how I found Void Bastards.
Gotcha. All right. My momentous pick this week is a little bit different. It's actually a YouTube channel for a woman named Lisa Crosby from Australia. And just for a bit of context, or our organization, Limestone Learning, we host our stuff on the Microsoft 365 platform, and we've been going through and sort of overhauling some of our internal systems and replacing third-party stuff with Microsoft stuff, which is ironic for an Apple guy like me, but whatever.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've been implementing is Microsoft Dynamics 365 Sales Enterprise, which is a CRM, a customer relationship management system, sort of like Salesforce. And in the setup of this, we've been looking for assistance, online videos and whatnot, and some videos from this woman, Lisa Crosby, has popped up. And she has a YouTube channel and a blog, and covers all sorts of topics, mostly related to the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, including things like Dynamics, but more recently, a lot of the AI features with Copilot, Copilot Studio, and the like. And I actually, bucket list achievement, I actually got to meet her on Saturday at the Canadian Power Platform Summit 2024 here in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. So she had been out for, there was a big Microsoft confab in Redmond, Washington the previous week. And so I guess some of the people they flew out for that came up to Vancouver, which is just a few hours away, and attended this summit. So it was largely developer oriented, and some functional developers as well. Some people doing consulting and application. So, but and they had a bunch of half-hour sessions throughout the day, and I learned a reasonable amount. But her session was literally the best session, and it's not just because my friend of the show, Bob Murphy, and I are giant fans of Lisa Crosby. So you can find her website at lisacrosby.com, and there's links to her YouTube channel and videos there. If you are a user of Microsoft 365 platform and some of the specific tools in there, especially Dynamics and Copilot, I would recommend checking her out.
So Tristan, you didn't fanboy too bad when you met her, though, no. Right? You didn't totally spook her. Like, I like cool. Video number 74. It was my favorite.
Exactly. Can you sign my body part?
Can you sign my internet?
Yeah, exactly. No, it was all good. I managed to maintain a certain amount of decorum.
Good.
Yeah. So let's move on to our momentous projects. And Will, after a couple of weeks off, you've got some fresh beats for us. What are they?
Yeah. So back with a vengeance, Gold Tooth Volume 8. And it's, people actually I've found it's very weird, but people seem to like the Gold Tooth series. I don't put it out as much as my main series, which I call Level Up. And so, like, when I put out a Gold Tooth, people were like, yes, finally a Gold Tooth. I'm like, wow, you actually know the difference. That's great. Wow. So, yeah, there's again, it's a small audience, but there are people who really like my beats, and I appreciate them very much. And yeah, so this is my latest looper on Table Beats and Tableless.net, and people seem to be digging it. And I've got some really positive responses. It's probably one of my more popular ones in the last, 365 days. My last one too, which was retro. Was it 6? I can't remember now. I do too many of
You're
them.
too prolific.
Too prolific. So my last one was a retro one called Retro, and that one I keep on hearing comments about it. So maybe you put in 4 years worth of work and it starts to pay off, I guess.
Exactly.
Just do something every day for 4 years and eventually it'll work out for you.
Yeah. Including a weekly live stream and podcast or two.
Yeah.
So for your fans, Will, or for the new people, the future fans, how would you describe Gold Tooth in comparison to some of your other series of beats? It's cool that you've developed these various lines
Yeah.
of beats. So how would you describe the nature of the kinds of beats people would hear in the Gold Tooth series?
Yeah, so my sort of thought with Gold Tooth is that it was more sort of mix of hip hop and trap and electro. So sort of like some of the origins and sort of I guess sub genres of hip hop, things that are sort of attracted to hip hop. Something like electro, was some of the electro music was sort of the first hip hop. Things like Nucleus and Egyptian Lover and things like that are some of the roots of hip hop. But yeah, people don't often think of that as hip hop, right? So I'd sort of take these streams and mix them all together, and it kind of gets to be this funky hip hop type of music. Where something like Level Up, I always say the whole idea between with the Level Up series is you're supposed to level up. So there's different BPMs, there's different styles. You could get drum and bass, you could get techno, you could get hip hop. It's definitely tends to be more sort of on the hip hoppy scratch end, but I let it go in different directions and really try to do everything from 70 BPM to 180 BPM in that series. It's really supposed to be, tools to let you level up. Whereas, Gold Tooth is more of a vibe. It's more of a feeling. It's more of a, hip hoppy techno type of thing. So that's where I tend to go with it. But yeah, and something like Retro obviously is sort of inspired by older style 80s type of 808s and Roland Juno synthesizers and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of the big differentiation that I have. And Gold Tooth, Retro, and Level Up are sort of my 3 main series that I keep with the most. I've come up with other sort of little series like Triple Cut, which I'm now calling Triple Cut. I may come up with another one of those in the future. I'm working on some stuff for that. But that's sort of my lo-fi, more sort of groovy series. So yeah, I try to differentiate them. Once in a while, I just do something because I have a cool graphic. But for the most part, the 3 or 4 main series I have are really a different feel or a different type of music.
So if people want to check out such timeless classics as B-Boy Bounce, Bad Breath, and Hillbilly Fader Fighter, they can find your work at tabletist.net/artist/Molotov, or just go to the site and search for you, I suppose. Good stuff, Will. Glad to see that you keep on beating on.
Keep on keeping on.
All right, and one of our
Speaking of beating on,
one of our missing quarters, Tasia Custodi, has yet another video for us this week. And this is on the best Google Keep features. So she's back to doing Google content. And I'm sure there'll be more to come because Google's doing lots of stuff all the time. So Google Keep, for those the uninitiated, is like a notes app. It's like a very capable notes app that ties into all the other stuff that you might be doing on Google. And it's available not only on Android, but on iOS, iPadOS devices as well. So nice tight 8 minutes and 59 seconds. All you need to learn about the best Google Keep features. And you can find Tasia's work at youtube.com/Tasia Custodi. And speaking of Tasia Custodi, as you may know, she and I have another little show called AI Named This Show. The most recent episode was about AI video generators and how people are using them to start putting together short films and the like. The AI video generation capabilities are just increasing in quality like wildly. It's just like, well, you remember how it was like a year and 4 months ago. So 16 months ago is when we started talking about ChatGPT. We had been talking about some image generation stuff before that, but like there's been so much happening.
And that was so bad. I remember when that stuff started coming out and people were like, oh man, you have to check this out. And I check it out and I'm like, this is hot garbage. Like this is serious hot garbage.
Yeah.
And then within 6 months, we were getting things that looked like people.
And they started getting the right number of fingers and proper teeth, like all of these things. Like that's the thing, is like when you're using one of these tools today, just remember it's the worst it's ever going to be. It's just going to get better and better. And there's so much heat in this space right now. There's, closed source models, open source models. So in that episode of AI Name the Show, we discuss some of the latest models. And when we finally get the YouTube version up, you'll be able to see some of the outputs from them. But we, of course, include links in the show notes for all those tools too.
Did you see the Instagram that I sent you where it was a video of an AI generated clip of Will Smith eating spaghetti? And it's one of those like monstrous things. And
yeah, we had that on Momentous Live like a couple of years ago, I think.
Oh, did he? Yeah. And then the next one was, this is AI now, and it was actually Will Smith faking doing it. Like he was pretending that it was actually AI, but it was just him pretending to recreate the eating spaghetti scene.
And for a moment, people liked Will Smith again.
Yes.
It was in good humor. So
yeah. Well, he does have good humor. It's just other things that are his problem right now.
Anchor management.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of years. I think he'll be out. Hopefully, be out of the penalty box soon.
I don't know. I think it might be a decade.
Okay, we'll see. Let's see. Anyway, I'm going to change the topic now because we can talk about other people that have been canceled, and I'm just going to start listing them off. And if I did, I would get canceled. So if you want to find out more about the latest in AI developments, you can check out www.ai named this show. And of course, we have this little show here that you can find out more about at www.momentous.tv, where you can find past episodes on YouTube and in audio podcast form. Links to all our socials. Please give us a follow. And then links to all the stuff that our individual team members do, whether they're currently here or not. That's okay. Hopefully we'll have the whole band back together at some point. That's www.momentous.tv.
We did it.
Oh, and we did it well. Time to stick a fork in this. And until next time we get together, we hope your week is truly momentous.